Void Mage Gamer is now partnered with Flipside Gaming, so you can use the promo code on their website, all caps Void Mage, to get 10% off all orders $10 or more. It's a great way that you can support both Flipside Gaming and Void Mage Gamer's channel. Hello guys, welcome back to another top 10 Commander video. This time we're going to be going over the Boros cards. I'm not going to lie to you, I've mentioned this before. Boros is extremely combat oriented. It doesn't really do anything outside of that too well, so if there's anything I have against this guild, it's how linear it can be, but it does have some pretty cool commander standouts. I will talk about them in this video, and this video is coming out before War of the Spark, so I don't have any knowledge of those cards. Maybe there's some good Boros stuff in there, but this is primarily going to focus on cards up until the point of Guilds of Ravnica, because that was the last set where we saw Boros cards. As far as honorable mentions go, the set gave us two new commander options to go with, Tajik Legion's Edge and Irelia Exemplar of Justice. I really do like these commander options. I think they're pretty cool. But again, with Boros, you have a lot of combat-focused strategies, and while Tajik can be pretty interesting if you like earthquake effects, anything that can deal a lot of damage to all creatures, so long as you have a pretty decent board, it could end up being mostly a one-sided board wipe for those cards, so something like a Blasphemous Act is not going to get rid of all of your other creatures. And the new Irelia is pretty cool. I do like her synergy with Double Strike, giving creatures that extra power is quite significant, but other than that, the mentor mechanic is pretty boring. We do have some unique commander options like Depala, Brian Stoutarm, Firesong, and Sunspeaker that don't just focus on good keywords and combat strategies, but for the most part, if you're looking at every other commander option this guild has to offer you, it's going to be combat oriented. So let's start it off here with number 10, which is Assemble the Legion. I'm not going to lie to you, I really am not the biggest fan of this card unless it's going to be a token strategy, because it is one of the slowest in a multiplayer game. You have to wait till your upkeep, and even then the first time you're just getting one token, so realistically you're not going to get that much value unless you have this out for like a few turns and nobody cares about it. And it is one of those things that people like to freak out about. If someone's slowly building up their forces, they get more tokens each one of their upkeeps. It's an easy thing to fearmonger, even though it's really not that powerful. I will say though, I do like its impact in Pillow Fort decks where you can slowly build up a line of defense. That's kind of cool to me, but just seeing as it doesn't really do enough, I think it's perfect for number 10. There's not a whole lot of Boros cards to choose from, and the card does see a lot of commander play. Number 9 is a new card from Guilds of Ravnica, Response to Resurgence. This is the one thing I hate about the newer Ravnica sets, is the fact that these split cards don't function like they used to in Return to Ravnica block, where you could cast both sides if you really wanted to. One half of this card is going to be an instant, the other half is going to be a sorcery. I do like the option though, because you have a lot of these extra combat cards. They don't really offer you much else though. This does give you the option of removal if you really want it, and the extra combat is actually really good because your creatures are going to gain vigilance and first strike until end of turn. So even if you attack twice with a creature, it's still going to be untapped, leaving yourself with a ton of blockers, which is exactly what you want. You want to keep the pressure on your opponents while also being able to prevent them from overpowering you. So overall, I think it's a pretty versatile card. Usually these split cards are fantastic in Commander, so long as both of the sides are actually good. Number 8 is Deflecting Palm. This is a card that I'm kind of torn about because so many people play it in Commander. However, it is very specific. It has to be a source of your choice. It has to deal damage to you. It can't just be life loss or anything like that. Let's say someone wants to hit you with an Exsanguinate. It can't stop that from happening, but it can stop your opponents from trying to trample over you with a massive creature, which does happen quite often. Voltron decks seem to be pretty powerful in the format after all, and it doesn't target either, so it gets around Hexproof, Shroud, just any source that's dealing damage to you. You prevent that, so it's kind of like a pseudo fog, but more importantly, you're able to deal that damage to that opponent. So if they hit you with a massive burn spell, so long as that burn spell's damage can't be prevented, you're able to then redirect that damage to them, which is pretty sweet. Number 7 is Master Warcraft. Now, as long as you're able to get the timing down and you have no issues with that, it's a fantastic card. You have to cast it before attackers are declared, so make sure you do that at the very beginning of the combat step, or even their main phase 1 whenever you feel like doing it. It could be your main phase 1. So long as it's before the attackers are declared, you should be fine. You choose which creatures attack, and you choose which creatures block. You choose how they block and everything. So it's an incredibly powerful card in combat decks, because one big thing that Boros has a problem with is getting over certain creature decks. Stopping them from blocking any of your creatures is actually really good. You could use it as a way to remove problem creatures. That's also pretty effective. Force their weaker but pretty powerful creatures with good abilities to block your for awesome creatures with good keywords. Pretty versatile card. Definitely one that belongs in just about every good combat-oriented deck. Number 6 is Boros Tarl. This guy is fantastic. My opinion of him has changed over the past few years he's been out, but entering the battlefield or attacking and giving any creature that you control double strike or lifelink until end of turn is fantastic. Just the impact, being able to stay in a game longer off of the lifelink alone is incredible. Double strike though, it's enough to be threatening with commander damage, it's enough to threaten with infect in some cases. It is just one of the most difficult things to deal with for so many decks, because double strike combined with any sizable creature is going to be a problem for you to defend against. And even if you are able to block consistently, prevent commander damage, there's no reason not to attack when you're able to gain a whole bunch of life off of the double strike. It just keeps adding up, and by the time you're able to deal with Boros Tarl, it might just be too late. Maybe they have double their life total. It's something insane like that. Just a consistent threat, and with partner you have the added benefit of combining him with any of those other partners from Commander 2016. So think of all the possibilities there. Number 5 is Iroh, God of Victory. Now I've mentioned before in my other videos that the gods are pretty good creatures, indestructible, make them your commander. That's a pretty good reason to get in for some commander damage. This is all about combat though with Iroh. Creatures you control can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures, so basically menace, and you prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. This is meant for Boros. Menace is kind of like double strike, maybe not as good in my opinion. One of the most difficult things to deal with as far as combat goes. It's going to force your opponents to make uncomfortable blocks, have to give up creatures they don't want to, but most of the time it's just going to make it easier for you to get in with damage. You prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control, making it pointless to not attack. If you can at least get in with 1 or 2 creatures, that's all the incentive you need. This is exactly what Boros wants to do. It wants to keep its foot on the pedal, keep the pressure on your opponents. Iroh is fantastic for that. Number 4, we have Irelia the War Leader. Now, if we're just going to ignore the Helm of the Host combo, Irelia is still one of the most powerful cards in Commander. As soon as you get her out there, you're able to attack. She has haste. She also has vigilance, so she doesn't need to untap herself. She can attack again, which is why that Helm of the Host combo is so nasty. But Boros with extra combat steps, it's nothing unique, but this is one of the most efficient ways of getting those extra combat steps, because you have a creature that if she's out there every single turn, it's going to be difficult for your opponents to match you in terms of combat. Like I just said with Iroh, keeping the pressure on your opponents is what you want to do in these colors. While I don't prefer playing Boros this way, it has been pretty effective in the past. Major downside though with playing these impressive angels is that it does make you a massive target. Number 3 is Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight. Another pretty impressive angel. Pretty much doubles all of the damage that's dealt to your opponents and halves all of the damage that would be dealt to you, which is pretty ridiculous, and it makes her one of the most versatile combat related creatures on this whole list, because you don't even need to play her if you're just a combat deck. You could play her for Pillow Fort. Maybe you're playing Queen Marchesa and you just want to make sure you're not being dealt as much damage. Also a cool way to incentivize your opponents to attack each other, because they're also going to be dealing double damage to each other. Like Irelia, huge target on the table as soon as you get her out. People don't like being dealt more damage than they have to be dealt, but that's why you play Commander. You want to see these massive creatures, you want to see huge plays, and Gisela is one of the hugest plays that you can have in Boros. Number 2 though, we're going to get more practical, cards that are probably going to see more play across the format, and I'm a huge fan of Wear and Tear. I think it's one of the best cards that Boros has to offer. For 2 mana in red, you can play Wear, which destroys an artifact. For 1 mana in white, you can play Tear, that destroys an enchantment. But for 3 mana total, which is why I said I like the old version of these split cards, Response to Resurgence, you can only cast one or the other. With this, you could cast both. For 3 mana total, you can destroy an artifact and an enchantment, which is pretty freaking sweet. 2-for-1s are usually pretty good. It's why people like that card Crush Contraband and Return to Dust. Being able to 2-for-1 something for only just 3 mana is pretty fantastic. And unlike Hull Breach and Gruul, where that's a 2-for-1, that's at sorcery speed, this is for 3 mana at instant speed. May not be the flashiest play that you can have in Boros, but in terms of just good removal, it doesn't really get much better than this. But number 1 is a pretty good card, not just in Boros, but any deck where you like having multiple modes, having those options, versatility. Boros Charm is fantastic. In other formats, a motivation for playing this card is that it can deal 4 damage to someone's face. In Commander, that's rarely relevant. You have the option of making all permanents you control indestructible until end of turn, or you can give a target creature double strike until end of turn. Those two I think are absolutely incredible to have in Boros. Double strike to just one creature may not seem like a big deal, but this is also the format where Commander damage is relevant. And in Boros, I think for most commanders that's going to be an option, that's going to be a win con for you. But having a protection spell when there are so many board wipes that can ruin a game for Boros, being able to get this off of something like a Sunforger is a great response, and it helps you keep your presence. This is what you want to do. You want to keep your foot on the pedal. You want to keep your creatures out there swinging. Even if you want to cast this before you go to combat to ensure that your creatures survive, it's a good card. It's a good response too. I'm going to go to combat, give a creature double strike. Before damage is still relevant sometimes. Late game, that could be a winner. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you think about Boros. Not my favorite guild, but I do like playing it every now and then. You guys have a wonderful day. Voidier signing off. See you all next video.